What's going on, guys? Big welcome to you all to our channel. We are Team Crushing the Meta. Today you're here with D-Boy, and we are back with another episode to talk about Vanguard OverDress. And this time we will talk about what is the best OverTrigger that we have got, because all the OverTriggers are revealed and now is the time to talk about them. So this will be a medium long video, think about 20 minutes, so you should not take too much of your time, but we have to start with talking about the OverTriggers themselves as what they do, and then jump into the actual comparison between the OverTriggers. So let's just start and get into it. If you are new to our channel, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like and comment, and yeah, let us know what is your favorite OverTrigger. So of course we will start with the Clay Elemental. This is the OverTrigger that we will get from the starter decks, and pretty much we will just read through his ability, because the first part of the ability is for all OverTriggers the same, while the additional effect is different. But this is the OverTrigger that you could play in each nation. Also in this video we'll only talk about OverDress. We will not get in too much into let's say the premium. We'll talk a little bit about premium, but not too much. So for the skill of the OverTrigger, so all the OverTriggers, you could only play one of them in the deck, and then the moment that you drive check or damage check them, you could give one of your units the extra 100 million power. If this card gets revealed during the drive check or the damage check, it gets removed from the game and you pretty much draw a card. So if you damage check it, it actually becomes a heal and a draw at the same time. And if you drive check it, it still has its additional effect, and you give the 100 million power, but you also draw a card. So it always gives you the extra draw, as in its skill set when revealed as a trigger, remove that card from the game, or actually this card I mean. Draw a card, choose one of your units, and it gets 100 million power. And if it also revealed during the drive check, then you get the additional effect. So basically between having it as a drive check and a damage check, if you get it as a damage check, it's a heal and a draw and 100 million. If you get it as a drive check, it is a draw, 100 million, and an additional effect. So that is basically how the OverTrigger works. The additional effect of this card is that you give one of your units the extra 100 million power. So you'll be giving two of your units 100 million. So this is definitely good if you have multiple attackers that you attack with, or you have multiple units that you have to give power to. But basically the other nation triggers are better, which we'll get into right away. We will not take the Clay Elemental into comparison because it's just on a different level, and it will be played in each of the nations if needed. So the first one that we will talk about is, of course, my favorite, because it's from DarkStateeee, and I will not be pronouncing names because I don't want to butcher names. So this one, of course, has the first part of the ability is the same. When you drive check it, when damage check it, it does the same. But then the additional effects of the DarkStateeee OverTrigger is basically you get, during your turn, all of your Vanguards get 10k and a crit. So what will happen right here is, this is one of the few triggers, if not the only one, who is not wasted whenever you drive check it. If you drive check this early game as, let's say, your first or second drive check, if you go first and then let's say you go second, so you attack on your grade 1 turn, and this would be your drive check, this is perfect, this is gold, because during the whole game you will have the crit on your Vanguard. And that does make a big difference, because there are some moments where your opponent will be just take the Vanguard attack and then they could not. Also, it will cost them more to guard your Vanguard attack, because he doesn't only get a crit, but he also gets the power, the 10k, which actually does make a difference, because your opponent could not just throw 10k, they will be throwing 15k most of the time, because again, we don't have the 10k shield value, we have the 15k shield value. So this OverTrigger is very simple, as it doesn't really do that much during the big turn, let's say, that you drive check it, but during the whole game it's good because the crit and the power will stay till the end of the fight. And this is, as I said, the only trigger, OverTrigger, that you benefit a lot of when you got it early. And then we get into the Dragon Empire one, and this one is also very interesting and very good. Basically, you could restand your Vanguard when you get this, and this will depend a lot on the moment that you drive check him, because if you drive check him during a turn that you already had a crit on your Vanguard, or you have a very powerful Vanguard and when it attacks it does something, then this is basically amazing, because this would mean that you will not only hit with a Vanguard, which you could have made 100 million, right? Because you still get the power from the OverTrigger itself, so you could just make your Vanguard 100 million and resend and attack with it again. So you have 2 attacks with 100 million, and you have 3 other drive checks where you could get a crit, and your opponent needs a perfect guard to stop the attack, otherwise they're dead, they're gone. So one of the amazing but simple OverTriggers is the one that we have right now, which is from Dragon Empire. The downside to this trigger is if you do get him early. I mean, if you get this as a second drive check when you are chilling on grade 2, then you have a second drive check, but if it's not a crit, even if it's a crit, then you do your opponent 3 damage early. It's good, yes, but it is not crazy good. I mean, you want to have this on your grade 3 turn and not before that. So again, with these OverTriggers, it really depends on the moment you get them and how good they are, while the one from the Dark State doesn't really follow the same rules as the others. So now we get into the OverTrigger from the Cater Sanctuary. So we have the one right here, which has, in my eyes, the skill that is definitely based on the deck that you play him in and how good this is. Because what this guy said is, until the end of turn, you also perform drive checks for the battles that your Vanguard attacks. So if you only have 2 front row attackers, then you'll be having the drive checks of your whole front row. Everything in your front row will have a drive check. It doesn't say basically if they get a twin drive or they get a single drive, but it said they prefer drive check, which basically means if you have a grade 3 chilling in the front row, it will have a twin drive. And because this deck actually plays lots of grade 3s, this would mean that you will have 6 drive checks in that turn, and that is huge. But the big downside to this is getting this trigger early. If you only have your Vanguard attack on a grade 1 or a grade 2 and you attack with this, then basically it does nothing if you haven't called the Vanguard. The second thing also, you always have to attack with your Vanguard first if you play this OverTrigger in your deck and you want at least 1 or 2 extra attackers, otherwise you will not benefit from this OverTrigger. So for me, this OverTrigger has lots and lots of, let's say, if and whatnot, which means that in comparison to the other OverTriggers, this does go a little bit below, as I said, as for me. But yeah, when it hits hard, it will hit hard, and getting 6 drive checks is still amazing, but then you're still putting it at the luck of the drive check, which means we have seen that before in premium, that you can have 6 drive checks and none of them is a trigger. And with this you have 5 drive checks, so the other 5 you hope they will be good, but otherwise it's not. The other thing about this that you remember is the drive checks do go to your hand, which means that you are actually drawing all of these cards as they go into your hand. So it is basically a draw 4 / drive check 4 if you are on that big turn. And next we have the one from the brand gate. Still strange that's they call it brand gate. So this is the one who said double the power and the crit of all of your front row units until the end of turn. This doesn't look strong on in theory on paper, but this is actually very strong in when you really test it, because it does double all the power and the critical of your front row units, which means itself as well. And because this already gets the 100 million power, this is crazy strong, and your opponent needs a perfect guard to stop this. But if they already perfect guarded this, you could also choose to give the 100 million power to one of your regulars, which will also hit with a crit 2, which means that one of the attacks will be crit 2 and 200 million power, if I'm not mistaken, because you could still double, although it doesn't matter because it's 100, 200 or 200 million power. It's still the same, which is too much for you to guard it if you don't have a perfect guard. So for me, this OverTrigger is actually very strong because it will always hit the 2 damage. And on the other side, when your other rearguards, if they are already strong by themselves, this will make them even stronger. So for me, I think that this is one of the best OverTriggers that they gave us, because simply put, it combines the crit and the power in one. So that makes it very, very strong. And I said that before, and I'll say it again, that these OverTriggers are as good as when you get a crit with them. Well, this doesn't follow that rule because it always gives you the crit. The same for the DarkStateeee one. Your Vanguard will get the crit and will keep the crit, and that's why it is, in my eyes, also very good. The last and definitely not the least is the one from the mixed nation, as I still like to call it. So this one has the additional effect that it said draw a card, choose one of your units. Until the end of turn, it gets critical +1. All of your front row units get plus 10k. If your damage zone has 1 or more cards than your opponent, you just heal 1. So basically how this works is you definitely get the draw, but you already got a draw because all of these triggers give you a draw. So you draw the second card and you heal, and you give your front row plus 10k, and you give one of your units a crit. So it's like a draw, a heal, a front, and a crit in one. So it's all the 4 triggers in one. How effective is this? Well, comparison to the one from the brand gate, because that one gives you the ability to double the front row and to double the crit. So with this, it basically means that you could give one of your units the extra crit, but still could be the one with the 100 million power. So your opponent would, if they are at 4 damage, they still need 2 perfect guards to stop this. Also, it doesn't say give the 10k to all of your rearguards, it said to the front row, which means exactly a front. Which means in this particular nation, this doesn't power up your back row rearguards, which could also attack. So this on paper looks the strongest, but in my eyes, it's not the best OverTrigger, although some people would make it to be. The big side, the big good side about things is that the heal makes a huge difference in the OverDress game, especially in the start of each reboot. Let's say the heals make a huge difference. We have seen that in V, and we don't really see that much in Premium anymore, but we'll see it in OverDress. And that's why, in my eyes, it's still good, one of the best, but it's definitely not the best. So talk now about all of these OverTriggers. What is the right, let's say, order of the OverTriggers when it comes to me as my personal opinion, the least one in my eyes is still the one from K2 Sanctuary, because giving the front row the extra drive checks is good when you get into that turn that you call your grade 3s. There will also be some moments in the game that you will not have Rhaegars, and this would not do anything. There will be moments in the game, in the early game, that you will not have the Rhaegars, but also in the late game, if you could not fill back your field, if you don't have the right attackers, if your opponent retires your field, then basically this doesn't really do much by itself. It doesn't get a crit, it only gives you extra drive checks as in your Vanguard. Also, it actually kind of chooses your playstyle for you, because you have to attack with your Vanguard always, and that's one of the things that I dislike a lot about this OverTrigger. The second one is, in my eyes, the one from the Dragon Empire. Why is this, in my eyes, the second good? Because again, this is also very situational, and depending on the turn that you get into, that restand your Vanguard. Although you could always give your Vanguard the 100 million power, which means the second attack could still be very effective. But let's say that you're on grade 2 or just grade 3, but you don't have only one extra Rhaegar to attack with, and you attacked first with this, with your Vanguard I mean, and you got the 100 million power and the critical, so you hit your opponent for 2 damage, which is the best scenario that you could have. Then your Vanguard would restand and attack again. As long as they have a PG on the second attack, they pretty much could stop it right there. The same goes for if you're actually not grade 1 or grade 2 and you attack and you get this, then first you will hit for 1 damage, because you, doesn't matter if they guard or not, you hit the 100 million and you do them 1 damage. But when you restand and attack again, and that's the moment you want to get the crit, if you have only 1 drive check, then they could PG as well, and then nothing happens. But again, if we're talking about a Vanguard that does a lot by itself, as when it attacks it does blah 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 blah, then this OverTriggers become way better than being second place. But the same goes for the one from the K2 Sanctuary. So we are actually, I'm putting them as from low to high because of how flexible they are in the whole game. The third one is actually the one from the DarkStateeee, and I'm putting this one in between because this is, as I said, the only card, OverTrigger card, that is timeless. It doesn't matter if you get it early or later in the game. The earlier, the better, and that doesn't that only works for the one from the DarkStateeee and doesn't work for the, it doesn't apply to all the other triggers, because all the other triggers are good in the moment that you get them, but the one from DarkStateeee is very good in the moment you get it, because you still give your Vanguard the 100 million and the crit and the 10k, so it will be very strong, but also has a crit, so it could hit the 2 damage. But later on, each turn, you will benefit from having that crit and the extra power, which is definitely very good. Next one we have is, first I chose to put this at 4th and then this at 5th as being the best one, but later on I actually thought about it and I thought, maybe not. Between these two, it's very hard to choose, because in my eyes, on paper, the one from the Mixed Nation, Zoo and Water, is better, because you get the heal, you get the draw, the extra draw, you get the crit, which means that you basically could hit right away and kill, and you get the front, so you get all the 4 triggers in one. But how good is it actually? Well, you always heal if you are at more damage than your opponent, but that doesn't apply all the time, right? Especially when you are attacking. It's not like a double heal when you damage check it. You're attacking, so most of the time you will actually, your opponent could have more damage than you. That doesn't apply if you attack with your Vanguard first, but assuming in that nation you attack first with your back row attackers, which are weaker than you attack with the front row, then your opponent could always already have taken 1 or 2 damage. I'm assuming that could be the case, which means that they will perfect guard this, and then you give the crits and the 100 million to one of your other attackers, and they will have to perfect guard that one as well. So the crits is actually the crit and the heal are the two triggers in this particular card that makes it so good. While when we talk about the one from the brand gate, it basically gives everything the crit, which means that your opponent will have to guard your Vanguard and one of the other Regards, which you will give the 100 million power to, also with a perfect guard. So they need two perfect guards to stop him, and the same goes for the one from the Mixed Nation. So green and gray right here actually are basically both of them very good, because they give the extra crits, and because you can choose which Vanguard or Vanguard gets the crit. In this case, you could actually say that your opponent needs two perfect guards to stop this OverTrigger if they are on 4 damage, otherwise they would die. Well, the same doesn't apply to the one from the Dark State, because the one from the Dark State only gives your Vanguard the crit, which means that for your opponent, they only need a perfect guard for your Vanguard, and that's it. The same could go for the Dragon Empire one, because then you need to drive check the crits. You don't really get the crits. You get to resend your Vanguard and you need to drive check the crit. The same goes for Cage Sanctuary. You need to drive check the crit, otherwise it will not do much. So basically, these are my thoughts about this OverTrigger. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I hope that you guys also give me your thoughts in the comment section down below. So we'd like to thank you all for the love, the support you give to our channel, and as always, we would hope to see you in the next video as well. So till next time.